Welcome to Latinos Who Tech. My name is Hugo Castellanos. I'm an engineer and I work in Silicon Valley. This episode of Latinos Who Tech is brought to you by Audible. Audible is the world's premium platform for audiobooks with over 150,000 titles. If you're like me, you're passionate about learning new things, but finding the time to read may be difficult. Audiobooks are a great alternative. You can get a free 30-day trial plus a free audiobook by going to audibletrial.com/Latinos. Go and support them since they support us. Thank you. Rosa, how are you?
Good. Fabulous. Fantastic.
Thank you for making the time, Rosa. So, tell me your story.
All right. Let's start. So I was born and raised in, I say Los Angeles. I was actually born in East LA, grew up around LA in LA County. My family still lives in the San Fernando Valley. I come from a beautiful big family of 8. My parents, and then there were 6 of us, and I'm the youngest. My parents are Mexicanos, and I have a sister who was actually born in Mexico as well. So a little bit about me and my story. When I was a kid, I was such a nerd. You can ask my family and they will tell you that I used to cry when I was late to school. And I used to wake up my brother right an hour before or try. And then there was just like so much, my family still laughs at this now because I would cry if I didn't get a chance to do my homework or if I didn't have enough time to do my homework. I used to keep my sisters up because I used to like to read, and we had what do you call those? The double beds.
The bunk beds.
Yeah, bunk beds, and I used to keep the light on all night until like midnight, sometimes like 1 a.m. I clearly wasn't introduced to the night light or the reading light invention yet. And then, there's just other things that I used to go and hide in a room and work on jigsaw puzzles, like the bigger and the smaller they were, 5,000 piece. I would just go and hide. So total nerd throughout my entire childhood. I was also kind of tomboyish, so I used to like to roll around in the dirt literally and play sports. But at the same time, I also enjoyed like the girly things with my sister. But I think that has a lot to do with how I developed. In school, I picked up a lot of the math and science. One of the reasons why I think I gravitated more towards the math and science fields were because I didn't learn English until I was about 9 or 10. So I was not comfortable with the English language, and I hated reading. I hated writing, anything that had to do with English language.
And this is growing up in East LA?
It's in Los Angeles. It's called Sylmar. That's where I grew up. But I just stuck to the math books and the science books because that's where I was more comfortable in. And then naturally I just became better and better at it. And I was a smart kid when it came to math and science, and pretty average in the other fields. And when I went to high school, my counselor started talking to me about college, and I'm like, what is college? What, like community college, right? Because there used to be one up the street, and I thought that's
right.
That's what people do after high school. You just go to the college down the street, right? And then, he started showing me brochures and websites and everything. And we started talking about college. And then I started looking at the price, and I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that. And then also he was trying to help me find a major, which, again, this was 10th grade. I didn't know what the major, like, I don't know what that word was. I didn't know what a minor was. I was kind of late into the game when it came to college and planning for it. Luckily, I had the good grades, and I started developing that desire to go to college in 10th grade. And I I kept saying I wanted to major in math because, I like math. So I'm just going to be a
Mm-hmm.
mathematician, clearly, right?
That's
I didn't know what else you could do with that. I said, okay, so I'm going to be a mathematician. And I said, okay, no, scratch that. I'm gonna be a teacher because I also love to help people. And then I said, oh God, that's horrible. I don't think I can deal with like, unengaged kids. And, I couldn't do that. So then I think junior year, he said, well, what about engineering? And I didn't tell him. I didn't know what that was. I had heard the term before, but I had no idea what engineering disciplines there were or what I could major in. So I went back home that day. I Googled engineering, and I realized that there was 7 major disciplines: electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, all of that. And then it clicked with civil engineering because I honestly thought it was the easiest one. I read through all of it and I said, I can't do any of this. So civil seems like it's simple. It's buildings, bridges, it's basic civilization needs, right? I can understand that. I can't understand the electronics of like what goes into a computer. So I'm going to do civil. And my brother is a drafter, so that he introduced me to that as well. And I thought, okay, maybe I could be a civil engineer and work on CAD files or blueprints or whatever it is. So that's kind of how I got into this madness, construction, right? There's a whole another story about how that happened, but it was just those careers that were introduced to me, and I developed a love for engineering early on.
Got it. So what story was that? I mean, because I always wondered that why civil? Because you have software and electronics, and you have mechanical and aerospace, and you're in Southern California, right? So aerospace is huge down there. So I'm wondering, why civil out of all the disciplines, right?
So a couple of things. I mean, besides me trying to take the easiest path, which I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was equally hard, or just as hard as the other engineering disciplines. But with civil, I was set on building bridges or designing bridges, right? I wasn't a builder yet, or at least I didn't have that mindset. And the thing I love about civil is that the results of your work are tangible, right? And you could see an airplane, you can see a satellite, a computer, a device, all of that. But I learned that most of those folks work on like one component, right? The mechanical engineers work on one component, electrical, and sometimes you mass produce, sometimes it's just one gadget or whatever it is. But with buildings and bridges, you see them, and it's that tangible result that's so rewarding, right? I wanted to draw a bridge, design a bridge, and be able to ride on it, and be able to tell my kids in the future, grandkids, like, oh, I did this, that. Right? Yes. Same thing with buildings, right? But at that time, I don't know why I was fascinated by bridges. Maybe it was like the Golden Gate Bridge that inspired me, but that love for buildings and bridges and everything related to civil engineering, that developed into me wanting to see my product. I don't want to be in an office all day, and I want to be able to see my product. And I think that's how I kind of opened up into construction, because and second, I wasn't a very good student. I was pretty average, and I like to publicize that because there's students out there, right, that think like, oh, you probably had that 4.0 GPA and you were a star student. No, I graduated with a 2.9 GPA, barely. There was a lot of challenges that I had throughout college, and I barely made it through with a lot of support from SHIP, for example, and from my friends. But it wasn't easy coming from, I was valedictorian in high school, and coming from that down to being a pretty average student. But I'm like, well, at least I'm a pretty average engineer, right? Let's take that. And I know that the GPAs for engineers tend to be a little lower, but the did not fascinate me as much because I wanted to be out there seeing it. So I started to research construction companies, and they heavily recruited at my school. So, and I went to USC, so it was maybe 70% of the career fair was filled with construction management companies or general contractors. And then the other portion was design. So, and the other thing was the leadership skills. I started to develop a love for leadership development, and I joined a lot of organizations when I was a student. One of them was SHIP, and I became vice president my senior year. And I started reading books on the art of war and The Prince by Machiavelli when I was a junior. And then, to my senior year, I picked up more of those books. And it was just fascinating how we can apply these old leadership concepts into what we do. So managing a team, managing a budget, right? That kind of stuff started to get introduced because of SHIP. And with civil engineering as one of my passions and leadership development, construction became a pretty clear path for me. I was pretty lucky in that sense to have a clear path. A lot of people are still lost, and they just don't see it right away. But I got pretty lucky during school that I found something that was going to work for me.
Got it. No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And The Prince and the Art of War. That's awesome.
Yes, I think I still have them.
I do have them. They're in my library. So it's funny that you mentioned them, because the thing is that they are, this wisdom is millenary, right? Like people, like it still applies. Like people are still people. We just driving cars, and we have these super powerful computers that we put in our pockets every day, but we're still people. Like we're still programmed to behave in a certain way. So things like from the Art of War, the thing that like resonates with me that I always think about is that a good general knows how to pick their battles. I knows when to fight and when not to fight, and when maybe a retreat is the best victory you can have. So like knowing those things is just because you can apply them to anywhere. Like I don't care if you're an accountant or an engineer or you're a nurse, or I don't care. Like it applies. Maybe even like if you're a homemaker, like if you work at home and you take care of the kids, that still applies.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles. Yeah, that's awesome. No, so I'm really happy to learn that about you. But going back to the career stuff, so being a project manager. Or senior project manager, rather. What are some myths about working as a senior project manager? What is that like?
Yeah, I think I've become more and more aware as I've started to have more people join my team, I've had various teams, and I talk to. And I have these same myths myself, but I talk to some of the younger engineers that are just joining. And of course, the millennials are super eager to just get to the top, right? Whatever that means, right? And it's not an upward path. It's sometimes it's lateral and it's zigzaggy, right? I don't think they understand, or I understood. I'm also speaking for myself. It's not just that.
Yeah. Because you're a millennial yourself, right? Like, would you call yourself
technically a millennial?
Technically, what does that mean?
I'm within the age or the year born. There's a lot of different dates out there. I couldn't find a reliable source. Same thing for Gen Z, right? There's some kind of gray line, but I think it's from 1985 to 1995 for the millennials, and then the Gen Zers.
Okay.
Gen Zers are 1995 or 97, and some sources say 97 to 2010. So the Gen Zers are between the ages of 9 and 22 right now. But just going back to some of the common myths about project management. Everybody thinks, oh, I wanna deal with the numbers. I wanna be in charge of the budget. I wanna be in charge of the schedule, right? They think it's schedule, budget, so they jump right away into trying to learn cost management, and that is not the case. A lot of what I do right now is process and people management, which is very, very hard to do. Especially the people management, right? If I was a project manager that only managed processes, I wouldn't have as many gray hairs. But I love both aspects of it. I just didn't know how ready I needed to be to manage people. I was always on the track of like, well, if I know how to input this change order and submit this to the client and get that approved, I'm good, I'm solid, and I'm a rock star. And I did that, and I learned the cost management side really quickly. I picked up on the schedule aspect as well, and learning how we put schedules together, and understanding critical paths, and what does it take to drive the schedule, all of that. So the process, I knocked it out of the park. Like I was, I excelled at studying it and learning it. The process side is super easy, and if anybody here is interested or is at that engineering level, or even has a similar situation that I do, where engineers are just so eager to get to the top and then want to learn how to do something, it's more about, okay, let's look at the other skills that might be lacking in your tool set, right? How are you with people? How do you deal with crucial conversations? What do you do in a situation where a conversation gets really heated? And out in the field, it's a frustrating, and there's a lot of tension. It's a frustrating environment sometimes, and you're pushing people to do work, right? You're trying to motivate them to do work. What I was saying earlier about driving a schedule, you can put the best plan together, but to make sure that everybody's motivated to beat it, not just meet the deadlines that we have, but it takes so much, right? And it takes a lot of listening, right? If I had more time back then, I would have focused more on, checking in on my listening skills. And I was lucky enough to have people that said, hey, you don't listen very well. Or, after a meeting, it wasn't rude or anything. I had a manager tell me that I need to listen more. And he just pulled me to the side after the meeting. And I was so grateful for that kind of feedback, because I didn't know that that's what mattered. And then observing those good habits and good qualities that your other managers have and how they take care of people, or even start thinking about the ways that you want to be taken care of, right? Would you rather have your managers buy you a nice jacket, with a company logo, or would you rather ask them for 20 minutes of a coffee meeting, or just meet up for coffee one day, right? What do you value as from your managers, and then trying to adopt those habits, but it's really all the secret sauce is the soft skills. And as you get into management, you get pulled further and further away from the technical aspect of your job. You're not the one, you're no longer the one solving problems. You can become a stellar individual, a stellar engineer, and be the most amazing problem solver. But when you're a manager and you transition to that, the goal is for you not to solve anything. The goal, and we were talking earlier, the goal is for that engineer, your engineers and your team, whatever role, is for them to figure it out. So it's more about coaching them through it, and trusting them that they're smart enough to get to the answer.
Got it.
Right?
And being comfortable delegating and trusting your team. And there's this paradox of management, right? That you get promoted to your level of incompetence.
Yes.
So that maybe you are amazing drafter. You're just a magician when it comes to drafting. You can draw like with your eyes closed and the most beautiful building blueprints, whatever. And then you get promoted to be a drafting manager.
Right.
And now you manage a team of drafters, and you have to be okay that you're not drafting anymore. You're delegating that, and you're coaching them, and you're helping them solve their problems. And maybe you're really good at that too. So now you become director of customer services or whatever. And oh crap, I don't have any natural talent for this. So okay, but figure it out. So it's one of those things that if you're really good at your job, be careful with promotions, because you might actually be moved away from something you enjoy.
Yeah,
and it's having a career path planned out a little bit, just knowing like, okay, these are the things I like, these are the things I'm really good at, and these are the things that the company needs.
Right.
So knowing how you fit, that's powerful.
And it's not for everyone, honestly. Yeah. And that's something you have to ask yourself, right? And I try to expose when I talk about civil engineering and the different career paths that you can go through. I've done presentations on that to high school students, middle school students, even college students that are getting ready to enter the workforce. And I ask them, like, what are you really passionate about? Are you passionate about the technical aspect of engineering? Because when it comes to people, you have to be passionate about people to be a good leader. You have to be interested in helping them develop and motivating them to be their best self, and finding some of the best responsibilities that are going to grow them. So it's different. And I have to say that not everybody is going to like it. Not everybody's going to be good at it. I think I've been so fortunate to have taken the next opportunities and landed I'm getting closer and closer to my passion. I haven't had to deviate and say, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not going to go this route. And I've learned to love what I do. I learned to love construction, and I learned to love project management. And right now, people practices is one of the things that I work towards every single day. Reading books, listening to your podcast, right? That's part of my education right now. It's so important for me to learn every single day. And I think it's paying off. And I practice, I kind of give myself every day before I walk into work. I take the train right now, so it's awesome because I get like a full hour of a podcast. I can get a full podcast in before I get to work. And I always I look for things that I'm struggling with, right? For example, we're probably going to talk a little bit about Gen Z today, but I struggle with like learning what is it that they're interested in? What are they motivated on? And then I walk in and I'm like, okay, today I'm going to make a point to sit down with so-and-so and discuss their career paths, right? So I always have one goal on people. I think it's really important to do that because we, as managers, we're overwhelmed and we walk in with 1,000 things to do. Like there's never a time where I feel like I'm caught up. There's never a time, right? And I walk in and, I have to be ready to listen to my team and figure out what their needs and demands are. So the first morning I try to block it, and I don't plan to do anything because it's not your time. It's their time. And then they're going to be like, oh, Rosa, this, that, and the other. And it gets crazy some days. And sometimes all I need is just my coffee. I do ask for those 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, right? And right now we're in the office. We're in a pre-construction stage. But when we get to the job site, there's not going to be time for coffee. I better finish that before I get to work. Somebody's going to be sitting on my desk expecting some kind of resolution to an issue, right? So I don't know. It's important for me to have one people practice goal on top of my to-do list of tasks and phone calls and emails and all of that. Who am I going to talk to today, right? Who am I going to get closer to? What connection am I going to strengthen? And maybe can I help one of the engineers, work a little bit or work towards one of their career goals, right?
So that's really interesting. Can you double down a little bit on the part, because I love how you make yourself available for your team.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, how do you go about like tracking that? Oh, okay, so and so told me they need help with project A, and then so and so told me about project B that is struggling. Like, how do you track all these things? Like, are you writing them down? Are you taking notes on your phone? What are you doing?
Oh gosh. I don't. I think I just look at the full team list every now and then. So part of my responsibility is to. One second, my phone is low battery. Part of my responsibility is to continuously look at the org chart and make sure that everybody. Right now, we're developing a team, so I get the opportunity to kind of look at the whole picture holistically and figure out, okay, we have X amount, we have 13 people on our team right now. What is everybody doing right now? What do they want to do? And what are the demands of the project, right? So I do that periodically on a monthly basis. I don't have a tracking tool. I do take some notes when I'm doing that kind of work, but on a monthly basis, it's been pretty frequent on a monthly basis. And I'm just kind of doing like a mental check-in of, okay, where is everybody at? Does this person seem happy? But a lot of it is just feeding off of their energy. And when I notice somebody in like, oh, this week so-and-so hasn't been engaged or they seem to be lacking in motivation, instinctively I just want to talk to them. It's not planned. I want it to be organic as well, right? And sometimes I'm not the best person to communicate with them. Sometimes I need to go to another team member so they can develop their leadership skills as well and say, hey, can you talk to so-and-so? Or, can you give so-and-so a call and see how they're doing, right? So it's not all on us, and it's also utilizing your team and also helping other team members develop their leadership skills, saying, hey, did you pay attention to that? Did you notice how so-and-so responded? Or, they're not very engaged. They weren't very engaged in that meeting. And helping them also pick up on those cues and pretty much doing a team health check on their own as well. So, but we do have tools that are very, us engineers, we want to track, we want metrics, we want all
the
of
KPIs and all that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a notepad in my wallet that I use. So whenever like people come to me with like a random request, they just find me in the hallway. Hey, could you do this or that? Like, I hate having those things to think about. So I just write it down, and actually twice a day or something like that, I will look through my list and I will either put it in my task manager, or I will do it right then and there if it's quick. Or I will, send an email, research, do whatever. But it's a way, and literally, like okay, I'm going to be vulnerable right now. I actually bought, because it uses this little inserts of paper, I bought a package of 200 of them for $40.
Oh wow, they're
so it's like I have a stack of them like right here in my office. So it's just like a way of, again, like I hate to forget things. I hate the idea of somebody asking me to help them and forgetting that they asked me for help. So because I like to be present when I'm having conversations. I don't like to like, oh, I'm talking with Rosa, but in the back of my mind I'm thinking that, oh, I need to buy shampoo or something, whatever. So I just write it down. So, because guess what? Like, I could put it in my phone too, but this never runs out of batteries. So it's a way of looking at it. I don't know.
I love it. No, I might steal it because I use my phone for notes, quick notes. OneNote is my life. You can find out everything about me on OneNote if you ever get access to it. I have recipes in there. I have notes on personnel, right, and what their interests are. I have my to-do list. I have different notebooks, and I'm not sponsored by OneNote, by the way, but I really, it's one of my favorite tools.
Yeah,
And most
this
of these
podcast
tools.
is brought to you by OneNote. Sign up now.
Right, let's get them to sponsor
Yeah,
you.
OneNote.com/Latinos, and
Yes,
they'll
exactly.
get.
Oh gosh, we can do a whole episode on what's in my OneNote.
Let's
and
do
how
it. Let's do
I
it.
organize.
So you just told me that. I'm literally because I'm only gonna post the audio of this, but literally I'm pulling up my note thing and I'm putting OneNote episode with Rosa.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do this. So,
I think my team gets annoyed at how much I talk about OneNote, but it's I kind of I think I might be a little too pushy on the OneNote thing, but it's just finding your way, right, to be productive, right? If writing it on a piece of paper and losing that piece of paper is not working for you, then try something else, right?
Right.
But the OneNote, you can access it on your phone. You can take a picture of anything you write, or not writing. I don't think the technology is there yet, but you can take a picture. Say you're
actually, you can watching. if you have a Surface Pro with like a touchscreen, you can write on it.
Yes, you can do that on the iPad as well. But if you just have your phone and say you're listening to a presentation, you can take a picture of the PowerPoint slide and extract it as text. That way you can add your notes to that presentation, for example. But I'm really, I mean, one of my other fascinations is productivity habits, right? That how can I improve that? So I'm either listening to a podcast on leadership and people practices, or I'm listening to a book on habits, right? Like I'm currently listening to the Atomic Habits book, which is really just useful.
It's amazing. I love the book.
Amazing. I'm almost through it. I'm so excited to finish it and start implementing it.
I actually bought. I'm reaching out to my backpack here. I actually bought his habit notebook.
Oh, you did?
So he has and it's really interesting because he has templates on everything you can think of. So like things of how to hack the way you look at building habits. So the one that I like the most is the 1 line per day. So literally what it is that you put the 1 line per each day of the month, and you write out like what was the biggest win of that day.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, you always end up in a positive note. And whenever you have and again, like, it's gonna happen, right? Like you're gonna have bad days. You can just look back at it and like, oh right, yesterday I had lunch with my best friend and it felt amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you go up and you smile, right? So yeah.
The smallest things, and that's something that every day I'm always grateful for one thing, right? I'm actually going to start journaling. So I've heard about a gratitude journal, and I got the idea from the book, The Atomic Habits, about making journaling a habit. Writing 1 sentence a day right before you go to bed, and like you said, there's going to be tough days. But you have to get over it, right? In the way that you can, whether that's, you have to go out and de-stress, whether that's a run, sometimes that's a beer, sometimes that's a bubble bath, right? And
sometimes that's that's talking with a friend, like 20 minutes in the phone, do some FaceTime or whatever. Like, where like my case, that doing podcasts with friends relaxes me.
Nice.
So it's and then you know what? Then 500 people listen to them and makes me happy because I'm helping them. I mean, they're getting value out of it. So that's it's a way of catching up. Is that remember like that workshop that I got to do at Chef Nationals about networking?
Yes, fantastic workshop, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Something I always say is that it's not how much time you spend with other people, is what kind of time you spend with them. So what kind of things are you doing? So maybe you don't need to spend an hour with somebody. Maybe you just need a 5-minute conversation over the phone. and just like listening to their voice and listening back is better than like a 1 hour work lunch.
Yeah.
So it depends. So it's like maybe you're better friends with somebody that you go out on runs with than with some people that you work with, because you share that external thing that you're passionate about. So yeah, so I see podcasting as a way of just connecting with folks at a different level. The fact that we like shut off the world for an hour while we're doing this, I think that's powerful. So
it's so important. I think going back on the leadership topic, and how does all of this relate to being a good leader, a good project manager, whatever your role is, right? Whatever leadership role you have or that you strive to be in. The important thing, and you mentioned this earlier, was being present and showing up for your team. And some days, you don't want to walk in with a negative energy from the day before.
Yeah.
And this is just something that I also practice. It's like sometimes I pick like one song. If I'm listening to a podcast, the entire train ride, I make sure to listen to 1 or 2 songs that I know are going to like instantly take me to my happy place before I walk into the door. And I always walk in and awesome. I try to walk in with a smile and say hello to everybody, right? But showing up and being present for your team, it really makes a difference for me.
Nice.
And it's not something I always practice. I remember that when I first started out, I used to walk in with 1,000 things on, in my head, like, oh my God, I got to get all of this done. Nobody talked to me, and I'd just go straight to my desk and I start working, and people can see that, people can feel it. And, I started to notice the feedback, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to make time, and I need to be present for the team. And I need to make sure I'm good and that I'm walking in and leaving everything at the door. Whatever happened at home, whatever happened yesterday. And, my goal is for people not to be able to tell if something's off, because I'm there for them as well. And then, I have my time after work too. Same thing. You have to learn, and this is something I'm trying to be better at, learning how to disconnect and say, hey, this is done. The day is done. And thinking about this is not productive anymore. I need to focus on maybe something else in my personal life.
Awesome. So going back to engineering and civil engineering, and right now, do you work as part of a firm, or is like you work as a contractor? Like, how is it structured? Like, how many people work at your company now?
Yes. So I saw a question earlier too. I do work for a general contractor, DPR Construction. They're nationwide, all across the nation. Think about a smile from coast to coast. And I think total admin folks, we have about 3,000. So nice. It's a large general contractor. And we, in our region, we have a Southern California region. I'm currently transitioning to the San Diego business unit. And we have an LA business unit and Arizona business unit that makes up the entire Southwest. Nice. So in each business unit, I think we're averaging about 200 to 300 employees. And in my case, I don't work out of the same office. My office is a trailer wherever the project is. Right now, because we're gearing up for construction, I'm adapting to the office life. I'm dressing nice and like doing my hair, not wearing jeans and boots and t-shirts. Well, I don't wear t-shirts anymore, but I have to pay attention to that too. So for a few months, we're going to be in this office, just doing all the pre-planning necessary. But my usual habitat is a trailer. And in that trailer, depending on the project size, there could be anywhere from 3 people to 50, right? So we're gearing up for a project near San Diego that is going to have a staff of 48. And when I first accepted this kind of responsibility, I'm one of the 3 project managers that is going to be leading the group. When I accepted that, the thing that scared me the most was the number of people, because I thought to myself, this is like a little this is a little company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to be a company within a company. And
Right.
it feels almost like a mini startup, right? Because right now, you know, we started as 4 people. Right now we've grown to 13, and we're going to grow to a large amount of people. And I am just breaking my head over how am I going to make sure that all of these people feel connected, that all of these people's needs are met, and how do we maximize their potential and play on their strengths, right? You know, that's kind of my biggest worry. It is a large project, but I'm pretty confident I can learn the technical aspects of it. I can learn the name of each room and the detail of how the concrete is going to, you know, link with the floors or the roof and all that kind of stuff. So that is fine, and I love that kind of stuff. But what I need to focus on right now is making sure that we have the right system to take care of everybody and to make sure that they're all motivated, because we're going to be there for 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So it's going to be quite a bit of time. And how do we make sure the team doesn't burn out? And how do we make sure that they walk out of there the most high performing team ever and ready to lead their own groups? There's a question here from my friend Oscar that what's the largest group of people I've worked with? I think it's probably 12, 13. That's kind of been, I've
So it's
had
4x now.
Yeah, right. And that's a new territory to me, right? And you know, now it's kind of up to us managers how we create the environment and allow them to learn, allow them to grow, and meet the demands of the client, right? Ultimately, we have a contract, we have to fulfill our obligations, and we have deliverables. So it's a fine balance of, hey, we need to do this because we need to do this, but at the same time, I'm also interested in how what you think you're lacking and how I can help you maybe acquire a new skill or develop that skill even further.
Got it. So I'm wondering if we can address the elephant in the room. Well, not in this room. There's no elephants here, but
Aquí tampoco.
Aquí tampoco. Okay. So Rosa, you're a woman that works in construction. You're civil engineering. Is that common? Is that something is there a lot of women project managers in civil engineering? Because I don't know a whole lot.
I'll introduce you to them. There are more and more every day. So I think we're doing a lot better as an industry. It's still not there, though. It's still not there. This is one of the biggest reasons why I'm a part of SHIP is because I want to be active in that mission to fill our STEM industries with more women, more diversity in general. But my goal is not to make it diverse and get all minorities, have them have more representation. I'm focusing on the Latinas because that's something I can relate to, and that's something that I can, kind of show them how I did it and maybe share some of the similar struggles. But as you get to the top, if you will, right, whatever the top is, but when you start approaching a management and executive level, I forget what the statistic was, but I just recently went to a Women in Construction conference, and it was something like 2% of the executives and managers are women. I don't think we're going to have a big problem recruiting the engineering level positions, recruiting more women into those positions. I think right now there's a team that I know of that has 100% women engineers, and they have a women project manager. And I think they are a team of 6 or 7, I believe. So that's really impressive. But there's a leaky pipe, right? And a lot of these women don't make it to the management positions, and the executive level is really, really rare. I think what happens and why there is a gap, at least from my experience, is that we are. For me at least, when I was asked to be a project manager a few years ago, I said no. I said no. I said no. It's like, how do you say no to a promotion? I'm like, I don't want it. You know, I like what I'm doing. I want to be the best engineer before I move on to that role, right? We want to be 110% ready, right? And I felt when an opportunity came up, and a lot of my colleagues, I see them doing the same thing. I see them kind of lacking that confidence, and sometimes it's not even confidence, but we just doubt ourselves a little bit more, and it's a really tough industry to fit into and find your own voice. So the biggest thing I have to remind myself and others around me, for women, is that we can't be shy about it. Men will jump into a position, and men will jump into a position if they feel that they're 30% ready. And I see that happen all the time. They take it in a heartbeat, and they're vocal about it. So when the executives have their roundtable and are deciding how to staff their projects, they think about John and Bill and whoever, right?
Because we are more vocal. We are more
say,
assertive in the way we take projects. It happens to me all the time at work. Sometimes they will say, Hugo, we need somebody to deliver a training for this team in Colombia or Argentina. I'm like, oh, I'll do it. And wait, but don't you want to know what the topic? No, I speak Spanish. I'll figure it out.
That confidence of, hey, I'm gonna figure
because
it out.
I'll figure it out, because like I've done trainings before for the product I cover. If they want to hear about a different product, I'll get with the PM and find out everything about the product and get ready. Like, that's easy. I think like the biggest value that I bring to the table is the fact that I can communicate between both cultures. And knowing that I can do that and that I'm confident in my skills lets me be vocal and say those things. So guess what? Now, every time there's a training in Mexico or Colombia or Argentina or whatever, who's the first one that gets tapped in the shoulder?
Hugo.
This guy, yeah. So be careful what you're assertive about, because make sure that it's something that you care about, because
and
you need to build your reputation strategically. I mean, it's and I guess that my next question comes from that. That a lot of people think that like working in construction or civil engineering can be especially challenging to women. To the point that some of them find it overwhelming, too much to handle, and they leave. What do you think some people believe that?
They're not wrong. It's not a very inclusive environment for women, and I experienced it firsthand. And I want to say we're making a lot of progress, right? I think the reason why we're making a lot of progress is because there's more women. Right. So more women are being vocal about it. But I struggled with that a lot because I had the biggest pity party my first year when I started construction. And I, blamed others. I said, this is not for me. I'm not invited to the meetings. I'm not asked to go out to lunch with the boys. They're making comments on me walking around on the job site with a hard hat, asking if I'm lost and all that kind of stuff. And I let it get to me. And you have to change that kind of attitude around. And it's hard. A lot of the women don't know how, right? So they just kind of give up. I started looking for jobs within my first few months in the company. I started looking for jobs in business. I was even thinking about going into the oil industry. Not like that was going to be any easier, right? It's probably the same struggles. But I wasn't happy because I wasn't taken seriously. I wasn't respected. And I think that's why a lot of women leave. It's not a very inclusive environment. Nobody says, hey, we value your expertise. You should jump into this meeting and talk about what you know.
Right. So keeping in mind that the young women, students, and professionals that happen to be women that are starting their career, What advice do you have for them? How did you turn your ship around? How did you snap out of this purity party? What worked for you?
Well, what first worked for me is becoming an expert in something. So I think understanding the building systems and getting really good at that developed some confidence. And or it's just building confidence, right? So sometimes we do need that confidence of like, hey, I do know my stuff, right? I just need to show it to them. But it's just being assertive. I think what I found over the years is that a lot of people are just not aware. Men they're not women. They're not walking around and getting comments, or they're not being treated that way, so they're just not aware. So I think the very, very first thing is making people aware, but not in a way of, hey, you didn't invite me to the meeting. No, it's like more of like, you know what, I think I'd like to be a part of that. Would you mind if I sit in? Right. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, I don't think anybody can stop me from joining a meeting. I think I have the opposite problem now. I see something happening.
Yeah, like a Rosa. Rosa, should you be in this meeting or like?
I'm already here. I see people that are having a discussion on probably something that I should be a part of. So I just kind of go in and I jump into the conversation. I'm like, hi, what are we talking about? Or I listen in for a bit and I'm like, just to make sure if I need to be a part of that conversation or not. And I think you just have to take it upon yourself to be like, hey, I'd like to go to lunch too. Would you mind if I join? Right? It's just that question of, would you mind if I join? Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to say no. I mean, there are some meetings, right? Some probably more confidential and, some meetings that need to be kept a little tight. But you got to use your judgment for that, right? If your boss is having a meeting and it seems like it's going to be some high level folks in there, maybe it's not. Maybe you should reconsider that or ask, right? Can I be a part of that meeting? And I, as a manager, say, I don't think with this one, I don't think it'd be beneficial, or we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, but I'll report out to you later and keep you informed. But I still appreciate that. I really appreciate when somebody says, I want to be a part of that. And it doesn't have to be a meeting. It has to, a project, or just volunteer for the things or for the responsibilities that are going to help you in your career goals, right? A lot of the times, I think what happens to women, because we're so detail oriented, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword for us. Because we become really, really, really good at some things. Like, oh, Rosa's great at making graphics. We should have Rosa make it. Don't get pigeonholed by that either. Mm-hmm. I say, you know what? That's great, but making graphics for our t-shirt contest is not helping me. So I want to do that instead. I want to take on that project. But raising your hand and being vocal about it, it does take a little bit of confidence. And for me, the way I developed confidence was with my knowledge and my expertise, right? I went back home and I studied building systems. So then when I would join those meetings, I would, people looked around the room and says, okay, Rosa knows her stuff. She's up there on the board,
you would add value, right? You would add value to the conversation instead of just being passive and waiting for to be called on. It's the same way that like in college, right? So you have some students that are very active and they ask questions and they answer when the professor asks for feedback. They're gonna remember you, right?
Oh yeah.
That's and can I share with you how I handle difficult conversations?
Of course, please.
So I use this framework. It's called DESC. Have you heard about it before?
I don't think I have.
So DESC stands for describe, express, specify, and then my favorite, consequences. Mm-hmm. So for example, let's say that I was supposed to do a presentation for customers in Argentina, let's pick something, and my teammate maybe showed up late. So I need to have a conversation with them about this. So first, describe. Hey, How you doing? So I noticed that presentation, I was actually by myself in the setup part, and I had to set up all the systems, all the computers by myself. It took me almost an hour to do it because I think that it's something that two people should handle. Then, after you describe, then you express. And you don't say, you try to phrase your things in ways that you say I. Right. You don't say like you. You don't blame the person. It's not about blaming. It's about expressing. I felt a bit frustrated because of that. And then you specify what you want them to change. So next time, I would like us to work together on the setup. And we can agree on a time to meet beforehand. So it works for both of us. And then you go into the consequences. I think that this would make for a better presentation because we will complete the setup early and it will give us chance to practice beforehand and to ultimately have a better experience for the customer.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna feel that.
So this sounds a little bit robotic when you say it out this way, like explain. But what I recommend is that whenever you're going to have a difficult conversation, desk, and you can Google this, describe, express, specify consequences, write it out beforehand.
Right.
Because this works for conversations with your partner, your boss, your intern, your abuelita.
Don't send that text.
Right.
Don't do it angry.
Yeah, that's
same concept.
Same thing. And I love the fact that do you use
I
WhatsApp?
love it.
Do you use WhatsApp?
Yes.
So I noticed that WhatsApp now has the ability to delete comments that you send out. So you can actually delete comments in the chat. So like people, if you send like an angry comment, you can delete it. So hey, at least you have that now. So
you can't take the angry emails back though.
The angry emails, no.
I love that.
Yeah, so just take a deep breath.
Prepared.
Yeah, no, you have to.
Yeah,
and,
there's no crucial conversation that you can have and expect to go smoothly if you didn't prepare beforehand. If you didn't, I get you. It sounds robotic, but sometimes you do need a process for people practices, right?
Yeah.
And then it'll become natural, right? Like you'll learn that you need to, that certain steps work, right? And there's people that write books about it and come up with these acronyms to help us remember, right?
Yeah. So and desk works for me. It's describe, express, specify, consequences, and consequences can be negative or positive. In my case, I try to keep it positive. And hey, I noticed that you were late for last presentation. Tomorrow we're doing a presentation in Chile. So I think it would be great if we can show up half an hour early at the same time so we could have a better presentation in the end.
Right. Great.
But again, and I didn't make it about them. I didn't say, hey, last time you were late. So I think that you should be early so I can get on with my job. I could have that conversation, but the outcome is not going to be the same.
They won't. It won't be a lesson learned at that point. It'll develop some tension between you two, and then I don't think it's effective to have those conversations. And we're not all perfect. I do strive to. I mean, I didn't know that process, but that's the sequence that I do try to address problems. And there's some days where I forget, and in the heat of the moment, I just say, "You were late. Don't do this again." Right? And it's like if you see that body language and how people tense up, and then next time they see you, they're scared to be around. So it's important to try to remember to have every conversation like that and create that safe zone, essentially, right? To be able to express yourself.
Right. And just the describing part is so crucial. I saw somebody use this because somebody was showing up late to meetings, and they openly asked, hey, Rosa, I noticed that you have showed up 10 minutes late for the last 3 staff meetings. And then you express, this makes me feel concerned, and then you specify the, hey, is this meeting at a good time for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then the consequences, we could move it to a time that works better for you, if that's the case. And
Right.
just having a conversation, again, is going to be difficult, but you need to have it. Because the people that have these conversations, they have more clarity. And ultimately, at least for me, when I have clarity in my job and what I do, like I'm happier. Because I don't feel that I'm spinning my wheels in the mud. I feel like I'm actually focusing on what I'm good at and getting results.
Yeah.
So,
and people appreciate that feedback. They do. Most of the time, if you deliver it well, just like you described those two situations, people will always appreciate the feedback because they always want to know how they stand with you and how they're doing, right? And you don't want to leave them guessing for too long, right? If something happens, address it immediately with them so they know that they get the feedback immediately and maybe apply it to the next situation similar to that.
Definitely. And Rosa, I want to be respectful of your time
Yes.
because we are. I could talk to you for hours, but again, I want to be respectful of your time. See, you want to talk working across generations?
Yes.
So, what are some? I noticed that at least in the construction industry, from an outsider looking in, there's a lot of boomers and there's a lot of younger folks like Gen Z, millennial. There's not like a whole lot in the middle. So like what are some challenges that you have working across generations that you've experienced?
Yes, I think you're exactly right. We don't have a lot of those folks. The middle management folks are the seats are getting filled by millennials now, right? And there's just there's a lot of gap in leadership practices. The leadership styles that they learned from their from the previous generations, and then there's probably like a decade worth of gap for what I see in most teams and most settings. And what I see is that it used to be it used to be tougher, right? And they think that, this new wave is more sensitive, and we're teddy bears. But that toughness, right? Of like, just work hard. We'll work you, till the end. You'll work the 16 hours because that's what you need to do. And I think right now, a lot of the young folks are exposed to so many opportunities. I mean, I know I get tons of LinkedIn requests every single day. At least I get one, right? And I know my colleagues are getting them as well from the same recruiters. And the market is so hot right now. I think with engineering as a whole, and I can only really speak to construction, but I've noticed it across STEM, that the older generation, they're trying to adapt because they see the need that they have to. But I think one of the biggest differences is, like right now we're talking about this communication style, right? The desk approach. That doesn't happen with the older leadership style. They tell you what they're thinking, and that's what, most of them is like, well, this is just tough it out. You were late to the meeting and I need you not to be late ever. Right. And I think that's effective, right? In some cases, and that can work. And they've seen that it's effective, and it's been effective across different projects, maybe even different organizations for some of them. But if we're talking about retention, retaining talent and recruiting new talent, the rest of the millennial generation and the Gen Zers, we need to create a culture that's an environment that's inclusive, right? So I think they're starting to focus a little bit more on that. I think this comes naturally. Your bosses are concerned typically with, delivering the best product to the client. For us, the product is the building, right?
Right.
But and they're almost out the door too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's up to us to start thinking about the next generations, because for them, you're the last one, right, that they have to develop, maybe, right?
Right.
Or because a lot of them are in the baby boomer generation. So they're thinking about, okay, I just need somebody that can do X, Y, and Z. I don't have the time or the energy to develop anybody anymore, right? I need people that are ready.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want somebody that I need to train, right? So they come in with that mindset of just, I just need perfection, right? I just need you to do your job. And
Right.
for us, we want to grow, we want to develop, we want to, I think one of the things that I've noticed is that we like to move around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very known for the millennial generation. But I think the millennials and the Gen Z generation, we're happy to stick with one company if we can move around roles, right? If we can develop different skill sets.
This guy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's like I've been at Intel 4.5 years, and I've had 4 different jobs.
And
Just because
is that satisfying?
because I'm project based. So like once the project ships, I move on. And
Nice.
if it was and again, we love all our customers. If some projects are more challenging than others. So when you're done with a challenging project, you move on to the new thing. So it's almost like that new shiny object, if you will.
Yes.
So that and that's satisfying to me.
Yes.
So it's just knowing yourself and working for an organization that behaves the way that you behave, essentially. So it's finding that matching, but you are not gonna, that dream job is not gonna fall in your lap. You have to do the
No,
research and find
it.
out exactly. You need to find the right match. You need to do your research.
And really take it upon yourself to do that, right? And create the environment that you want to see in the future. So I was going to add on one more thing to the gap, if you will. And I think a lot of the times we just want to make changes, right? We want to, we're eager to be like, well, this isn't working and I want to change it, right? And sometimes, I think we have to, a lot of us have to be aware, and maybe there should be more training on this, on how to implement a change. And with your bosses, or all your higher ups and your leadership, I think sometimes you just have to show that it works, right? If you want to reformat the structure of a meeting, start small. Say, hey, for the meeting, the many meetings that I have here with this team, I do this format, and then we go through plus deltas at the end of the meeting, and it seems to work really well. Would you mind if we implement that into the big meeting, right, with the client? Can we try that? But they need to see proof, and you need to show them. And the same thing with me. I mean, if somebody tells me, oh, I want to change it because this is the way I want to do it, it's like, okay, have you vetted it out? Have you proven that will work? Have you done your research? And when you show that to them, they're willing to change some of the processes and some of the ways. You always get the comments of, well, we've always done it this way. We've always done it this way. And this is, they're true. It's worked in the past. But maybe, it's happening a lot with our industry with innovation. Innovation is kicking up a notch, and, construction is not seen as the most innovative and the most progressive industry. And I think that, because of that kind of image that we have, we're not recruiting some of, like we're talking about women in construction, and the next generation, they see, they're growing up in a world of, filled with technology. They can probably work a phone before learning how to tie their shoes at this day and age, right? So their world revolves around technology. And when you're not seen as an innovative industry, then that you need to fix that. And we are innovative. That's the thing. It's just going out there to communicate, and showcase all of the amazing tools, virtual reality and 3D models. We use all of it, and there's so much opportunity to play around with that. And I like to tell kids and show them, I bring up the 3D models that, I worked on the past and say, this is something you can do. And this is how this technology is advancing to make it attractive as well. But it is hard to implement change. The only thing you have to do is test it out and prove it and then propose it, right? Do your research and then propose the change.
Got it. So this is for all the millennial Gen Z folks that want to join the civil engineering industry.
It's cool. It's fascinating. And
yeah,
there's nothing like sitting outside the trailer and watching your building go up, right? So there's a lot of rewarding, just it's so rewarding for me. Construction is super rewarding. And I love that we are open, especially in my company. They're open to new processes. We don't have set processes. We have best practices, is what we call them. Right. And I love that because best practices are, it's like a live document, right? You have a best practice to have a meeting, or a best practice to bring a subcontractor on board. But it's really just that. It's a suggestion. And we are given the opportunity to suggest a new process. And same thing with innovation. If you find something, I get asked all the time, hey, can we purchase this tool for $50 a month or something like that? And then, and I'm like, okay, what's your proposal, right? But you have to let innovation flow. And we're noticing that our clients are more and more open to it as well, because sometimes it's not the authority of your boss or your manager to make that decision. A lot of the times it's not, there's no money in the budget, or, it's not required by the contract. So therefore, it's something that you have to allocate money for. And a lot of companies have, their innovation teams that go out and test different products, different softwares. But for me, it's, I think the evolution of that, and, having that tangible product, a building, watching it go up and fly up in the sky, all the steel and equipment that gets mounted and anchored and everything. Those are some of the things that I think are the most rewarding in our industry.
And thank you for sharing that. Rosa, it's been a pleasure catching up.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anything else you'd like to share or mention to this audience?
Yes. For me, I think my biggest piece of advice, to having success is learn something new every day. The formal education was nice, and fight on, go USC, but the formal education is just one component of it. But I think educating yourself every day in whatever you're passionate about, right? Whether it's a process, a tool, OneNote, or people practices. My biggest, I think my key to success has been the thirst for knowledge and my continuous education, self-education, right? So take advantage of everything we have nowadays. I mean, it's not just audiobooks, it's podcasts, articles. There's just so much out there to learn. And if we can take one chunk at, every single day and improve even to the, 1 degree, right? It's just going to make us better in the long run.
And any books you like to recommend?
Oh God, so
or
many.
Resources?
So many. I think one of the books that I've been reading, so for the women out there and for the men, there's a book called How Women Rise. And I can give you the information so you can put it on the notes as well. But How Women Rise tackles everything and breaks down misconceptions and myths about being a woman in, and it's not just construction. It's really for women in male-dominated fields, and sometimes, I mean, anybody can use it. And then the other book that I really love is by Brene Brown. She has one that's called The Power of Vulnerability. And it talks about the new, kind of like the new wave of leadership, right? And how being vulnerable and being, how being vulnerable is courage, and that is needed to be a better leader. So I'm interested to find out what research is being done out there about leadership styles, and knowing the processes is not going to make you the best leader, but being aware of how you feel and how your team is feeling is what's going to make you a better leader.
Definitely. And that How Women Rise, that looks really interesting. I need to check it out.
It's my favorite. I give it as a gift whenever I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So actually, if I'll put it in the show notes so people can check it out and download it and play with it.
Perfect.
And funny enough, they're voting Audible. So if they go to audibletrial.com/Latinos, they can actually listen to it for free.
Yes.
So just
get your monthly Audible membership. It's so worth it. Invest
shameless
in your
plug
future.
there. But the thing is that it's funny because when they approached me to like sponsor the show, I said like I need to like pinch myself. Like, is this real? Because I've been using Audible like for a while.
Oh,
It's so powerful. It's like, because I'm commuting to work. We both live in California, right? So we know how traffic is. So just driving to work, like, don't waste that time, right? So listen to a book, learn something new every day. Yeah,
I love it. No, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Audible and podcast. I think what Audible is, it's worth every penny.
Awesome.
For our education, right?
Yeah. Awesome, Rosa. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much, Hugo. Thank you for this amazing opportunity. I had so much fun talking to you.
Happy to have you. Ciao, ciao. Feliz sábado.
Ciao.